Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.
Welcome to another edition of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City Viewpoints podcast. I'm Jim Frazier, Vice President of Smart Cities here at ARC. I'm very happy today to be joined by Alex Chatha, our lead lighting analyst. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being on. Hey, let's just jump right in. What's your background, and how has your background enriched your most recent lighting study?
Well, I'd say first of all that I have a degree in operations technology, which I think gave me a foundation for covering automation systems. And here at ARC, I started at the sensor level, worked my way up to SCADA, and in particular, smart water networks. And then I joined the IoT team. And now that I've been on the smart cities and buildings team, my main focus has been on lighting control systems. And I've done the study for the whole smart lighting market for a few years now. And this year is the first year that I decided to separate out the intelligent street lighting systems market into its own study. And I'm glad I'm here to give the opportunity to talk a little bit about the insights that I gained in that research.
Well, that's great. Before we go on to this most recent intelligent street lighting systems study, I know that you had been involved with. Can you touch on some of the other studies you were involved in? I know that in conjunction with Larry O'Brien, you worked on the Smart City Platform study. And what others have you done in the recent past?
I did the water and wastewater study for ARC last year as well. I did a study on the overall smart lighting market, but I separated out the intelligent street lighting market. And I've done in the past studies on like everything from level sensors to through third-party logistics even. So I have like a very long history of working with systems here at ARC, and I feel like that background in operations technology is sort of was SCADA before SCADA. I mean, SCADA before Internet of Things was pretty much Internet of Things, but just not called by that same name. So I feel like I have very strong background, and glad that you have me on today to talk about it.
Great. So, well, then let's move on to, can you provide us an overview of the scope of your intelligent street lighting system study?
Sure. Well, it covers basically from the pole back to the operations center and everything in between. And it covers the sensors that are deployed on the light poles. It covers the controllers that are used to control the LED bulbs that are being installed. And then it also covers the network type that goes from the edge back to the operations center, and whether or not that's based on the cloud or it's on site. Both are included in this study.
Great. Now, this is a developing marketplace. What are the key drivers that are critical to growth?
Well, I think first of all, I mean, LEDs, that technology has given it it's microprocessor based, so it lends itself well to a system. So and the other benefits that it has, such as having lower electricity cost, lower maintenance cost, all these things are driving cities to transform their street lighting networks into LED-based systems. And on top of that, the vendors are providing platforms that are allowing cities to become smart in many different ways.
Right. Well, I think you answered my next question, which was how has LED technology been impacting the market? But do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. A little bit to add to that is that if you look at like the efficacy of the lights and the cost of the LED lights, those have both been reaching the point in the market where it's very low cost to apply this technology. And all the other benefits that it adds on top of that, such as like applications, smart parking, smart traffic management, environmental monitoring, all these capabilities that this type of system can give you, is really what's pushing cities to go for this change.
Okay, so not all is rosy always in all developing markets. So let's look at what are some of the obstacles and inhibitors to this growth.
Well, I think one thing is that it's a very highly fragmented ecosystem. There's a lot of vendors out there. So there's a lot of suppliers pushing, their stories about how their system is the best and their system is the one that cities need. And I think that sort of makes cities a little hesitant when they're getting such a push from the marketing side. And there's also things like cybersecurity vulnerabilities. This is increasing the surface area for attacks exponentially by putting these devices all over your city that give access points to cyber criminals, and the damage that they could do is pretty severe. That if you're controlling traffic, or even the street lighting itself provides safety for the citizens when they're walking at night or driving. So I think those are big ones. And then also, obviously, we have to touch on COVID-19. That is going to be a big inhibitor in the market this year and going forward for the next few years.
Yeah, one of the challenges I know is in your study is that now that LED street lighting is essentially a microprocessor, it is a microprocessor driven device. The IoT is there, but very often the challenge is what business case do we wrap around the fact that we can have a sensor in there. What economic business case do we, is so compelling that has a 2 or 3 year payback, or is just incredibly impactful in terms of human safety or preserving the environment, sustainability issues, or resiliency issues. And it's something that, while it's not necessary, no, I wouldn't call it an inhibitor. It's a challenge that the industry is wrestling with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just the energy saving cost alone makes this doable for a city, because in some cities it's as much as 50% of their electricity cost are running these old streetlights. Yeah. So I think that is like, a main selling point for why to do this. The ROIs are very fast. And then when you add in that the maintenance cost reductions for not having to go and change all these lights all the time, those two costs alone should make this, something that's worth investigating. And then I think when you add on top of that, there's so many different things where that can become revenue generators for poles, like or sustainability issues as well. For example, studies have shown that 30% of urban car emissions are from people driving around looking for a parking spot.
Yep, very true.
And it also increases the traffic in your city, makes people less happy, to be stuck behind someone trying to find a parking spot. So if you use this platform to add in a smart parking application, you can use an app. Many cities have apps now that are for smart parking, and you can locate a spot ahead of time, sometimes prepay in a garage for a spot before you even make your trip into the city. So I think that's an example that a city can look at and say, wow, 30% less air pollution, like that's a quality of life that smart cities want to deliver to their citizens.
True, and when you're out there replacing your LED street light, you'll get a 2 or 3 year payback, 50 to 70% energy savings, and you probably won't need to touch that fixture or maintain it for 3 or 4 times longer than the time it took the time frame it took to go and maintain an HPS or metal halide fixture, because those you would typically touch in 2 to 3 year time frames. These LED fixtures arguably are warranted at 10 years and may go quite a bit longer. So while you're getting that energy and maintenance savings, I would argue that it makes sense to put out your relatively low-cost backhaul network here, an intelligent street lighting system, with the idea that you will find applications, including, as you said, CO2, vehicle emissions monitoring. That's a great one.
Yes, I mean, whether the network that you use is broadband or not, you can still accomplish a lot with just power line communications, which many vendors offer that as an option for a city that wants to save some money by not having to put in fiber or a broadband backhaul lines. You can accomplish pretty much everything you need to do using edge computing and even a power line communications option.
Right. But the interesting part is that the financial business case is stronger if you can install this control network while you're doing your LED retrofit, because you're already up there in your bucket truck.
Yeah, and considering the situation right now where everybody's trying to work from home, the issue of not having enough bandwidth capabilities for remote working is affecting everyone right now, and cities are looking at that as a possible reason to switch to digital infrastructure. And I think that streetlights is the most cost-effective way, and if the vendors can, tell this compelling case to smart cities, I don't see why they wouldn't choose the smart lighting network as their primary way to increase bandwidth in a quick manner.
In fact, Alex, in thinking about your about the vehicle emissions example that you brought up, those of us who went to Light Fair in Philadelphia last year may have experienced some clean air around the convention center there in downtown Philadelphia. You can read, there's some application stories out there about how the air quality was very poor. The city recognized it, put out sensors, and now when the air quality starts drifting towards poor, they restrict truck traffic in those areas so that convention goers and people visiting the convention center get cleaner air. And that's
very interesting
going application. So moving on a little bit. So what are some key strategies for success for cities and for the utilities who are buying and installing and maintaining these systems?
Well, I think one of the key ones is that to use this platform for more than just lighting control. If you're using it just for lighting control, you're leaving a lot of opportunities for citizen enhancements to their lives, as well as public safety measures. I mean, they could be using IP cameras to see temperatures of people and provide a warning, for possible COVID-19 spreader. There's also other things that, in terms of adding in electric vehicle charging, digital signage that allows you to sell advertising, partnering with some of the wireless companies like Ericsson, and putting nodes on the poles to increase cellular data bandwidth. There's so many things that you can do beyond just the basic control system, and the cost difference is minimal to go from just a control strategy to a city strategy, a smart city strategy.
Yeah, those are great points, Alex. And I'd like to add that this really is not just a fit for New York City or Los Angeles, San Francisco, or Singapore. There are in some of the economically challenged areas in Detroit, they have an IoT network like this on the street lighting network that actually has smoke detectors in buildings that are not occupied, abandoned, they call them zombie buildings. And that gives the fire department advance warning that there's a fire, rather than a fire occurring and then a resident seeing the fire from down the block. And it has greatly enhanced the capabilities and the resources of the fire department. It's really been a force multiplier for the fire department. And the anecdote I love the most is that in a developing country in Africa, students after sunset in a city that had no power were doing some homework under a solar streetlight, but they couldn't see it all that well. It wasn't enough really to read their books well. So there are some vendors that got together and used a remote control street lighting system to turn up the light level beyond what's needed to illuminate the street for driving or walking, just so the kids could do their homework until it was time for a generally accepted time for kids to not do homework, say 8 or 9 at night. That small application then, because they were able to save their solar power in their battery system, attracted the interest of a satellite internet provider, who then provided satellite internet to the same kids and gave them some tablets, so that now in a city in Nigeria that doesn't have power, electrical power grid, the kids actually can have internet access, which is amazing. So
it's a great story.
These smart city applications are not just for the most advanced and most well-funded cities at all. It runs the gamut.
Yeah, if anything, it's the perfect opportunity for cities that don't have a lot of budget and don't have the economic power of a New York City or San Francisco. All light poles have a NEMA socket on it, and here in America at least, and you can get a node that plugs in and self meshes. I mean, I've heard for less than like $70 a node.
Exactly.
Which means that you can, in one day you can plug in all your street lights, and it will create the network for you, and be done for in the thousands of dollars or $100,000. It's not millions of dollars to do this. It's very reasonable cost.
And there is a strong financial business case to do this. This is not this can often be done in a positive cash flow manner when you wrap in the energy savings from the LED conversion. I've only got really 2 last questions, Alex.
Sure.
How do large automation vendors participate and be competitive in this market?
Well, I think that the easiest way is obviously to go the acquisition route, because as of right now, like there are many of the large automation vendors don't have this expertise for street lighting, but there are lots of innovative vendors that are smaller that have already created this technology, have the talent. So the easiest way for the big automation vendors to start, who are the best positions in terms from an operations perspective with engineering teams and the ability to go global and have expertise in a lot of different areas for a smart city. But in this particular area, they're not very strong. There's a lot of lighting vendors like Signify, Osram,
Sure.
all the big lighting vendors out there are in this space, but there's also dozens of smaller startups that have the technology to accomplish this. So I think the best way for them to approach it is to acquire.
Right. Because you're right. There are suppliers from large to smaller, like the Simcons and the Ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Now you touched on cybersecurity, but do you want to expand a little bit about that and maybe the NIST model?
Well, I was going to say just based off of like ARC's model of IoT, approaching cybersecurity from an IoT perspective, you have to, do a few things differently than normal. You have to extend the scope from local systems to distributed edge devices. You have to refocus your security strategy from protecting systems to device management. So it's you really want your IP camera to be secure at the edge, and have embedded security already when you're deploying these, because there's been many attacks that have utilized IoT devices because of the lack of security that has been employed on the device level. And then you also want to tackle convergence issues. So you want robust standards for your IT, OT, ET integration. And you also want to have secure supply chains. So that's like cradle to grave cyber asset protection for solutions. So you want to work with your suppliers or your ecosystem to secure it from end to end.
Great. So
I wish Larry was here though, so he could expound on that a little bit.
Well, I know, Larry is fond of pointing people as step one to the NIST cybersecurity framework as a real foundational piece of best practices. And I think in ARC's own lighting selection guide, we point to that as well. So Alex, who should people? How do people reach out to you to learn more about this study?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to go to ARC's website, arcweb.com, arcweb.com, and go look at the smart lighting page under our research there. And that way you can read a little bit more about it, see what's available, and it provides contact information. Or you can email me at alexc@arcweb.com.
Great. Well, Alex, it's been great having you. Are there any last words you have for us today?
No, I think that's it, Jim. I think we covered everything.
Well, Alex, thanks for joining us today, and we're looking forward to having you back. And thanks to everyone who's listening in. And we hope to see you again on another edition of the Smart City Viewpoints podcast. Thank you very much for attending today.
Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.